Getting your bike stolen sucks, so I'm gonna build a cheap bike that I will still enjoy riding around town. 2 weeks ago, I managed to get my hands on a complete 1996 Kona Cinder Cone for the very reasonable price of $100. Now the bike was not showroom quality and most parts were not original, but it was a perfect platform to build a cool beater. Used bike prices have been skyrocketing during the pandemic, and so has bike theft. Now it's been increasingly uncomfortable to lock an expensive bike in the city. Thieves are organized, they have access to tools that can render the most expensive locks useless, and they know what to look for. A way to limit your chances of getting your bike stolen is by making sure your bike is not the one that stands out. Also, it's a really good idea to limit the resale value of your ride. The challenge: building a cheap bike that doesn't look too cool and that you'll actually want to ride around town. I was expecting a lot of issues on a bike of that price, so I took it all apart to assess what was needed and figure out a budget for the build. The goal was to try to stick to $300 or as close to as possible. So on the bike, I changed everything I usually change on a bike build, which is the chain, the cassettes, the brake cables, gear cables, and housing. Brake calipers and brake levers were V-brake Derailleur LX brakes. They work really well. The pads still had plenty of life in them. And finally, to change the geometry a bit to something a little bit more modern, I sourced a Cannondale C7 stem and handlebar combo. The saddle that came with the bike could have done, but it was really uncomfortable to me. I had an old Physique saddle in my parts bin that I used instead and swapped for the original saddle. Originally, I installed the Derailleur that came with the bike, but the pulley wheels were just too bad. The cost of replacing the pulley wheels was the same as buying a used derailleur. Luckily, I found this 9-speed XT derailleur for $30. And so this is what's on the bike right now. Chain rings on the crankset were also really worn down, and it was easier to buy a new cheap crankset on Amazon with a narrow wide chain ring rather than sourcing a chain ring that had the same BCD as the original crankset. So if you add on all the parts, I'm at about $300 or so, a little bit more maybe. I'm happy with the end result. It's a bike that doesn't stand out too much, yet it's something that I do want to ride and have fun riding around town. All the parts on there find the right balance between performance and price. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to riding this beast this winter. The challenge now is going to be to stop upgrading the bike, not buy anything new, and just do maintenance on it. And that for me is going to be the biggest of challenges. Now, if you're interested in seeing a Kona build that's not budget at all, click right here for the Kona Sutra build. As always, stay safe, ride often, and I'll see you next time.